Okay, we're just started the laws of person who's in more severe situation. Let's bring it up. Chapter 92. Okay, so we're holding the laws of a person the heading is a person laws pertaining to a critically ill and laws of forced transgression. So we said we're holding the law number 2. Call Adam, a person any person who says, I know this person, and this person is in life is in danger, vis-a-vis the laws of Shabbos. Let's say there's no expert doctor, expert, mumcha would be an expert, that contradicts this person. Meaning to say, just a regular doctor to contradict a person who says with certainty this person's life is in danger, we still may listen to the person who's saying we have to violate the Shabbos because this person's life is in danger. But if there's an expert doctor that says no, this person's life is not in danger and you're overreacting, so then there's something else. Neman, but we believe the person unless there is an expert doctor contradicting him or her. And we would transgress the Shabbos for this patient if there's a person who feels this person's life is in danger. Even if the person says, I'm not sure. It seems to me that we need to transgress the Shabbos in order to save this person's life, and this person's life is in danger. So we would still we listen and we transgress and we do what we have to do, whatever it is that the transgression would be, in order to keep this person healthy. Because when it comes to someone's life, we're not careful. We're lenient. There's a famous line. There's a famous idea that's brought down that we say that suffik nefashis lahakal, that when someone's life, we have a doubt. Suffik means a doubt about someone's well-being, about someone's life. So even if you're in doubt, we're makel, we're lenient, so to say, we're lenient to transgress a law to save someone. There was a famous Rebbe, I think he says, I'm not lenient in someone's life. I'm strict in keeping someone alive. So what happens if you have one doctor, you have a difference of opinion. One doctor says, and then it doesn't have to be an expert, that the person is life is in danger and needs such and such medicine. And another doctor disagrees, or the patient himself, him or herself says, no, it's not so bad. We still listen to the doctor who says this person needs healing. Again, any doubt, we don't even take any chances. And what about on the flip side? The patient, him or herself, says, I'm really not doing well, and I'm in a bad situation. I need such and such healing that would be, in order to do it, would be a violation of the Shabbos. But and the doctor says, no, you don't need. We still listen to the sick person over the doctor. But in the case where the patient says, I need this medicine, let's say, or this situation, and it's violating the Shabbos, and the doctor says, no, this medicine will damage the patient, so then we listen to the doctor. So if we have to break down the law before we get to the footnotes, and the Rebbe gives an idea about this. Why do we listen to the patient? In every situation aside, if the patient is asking for something that the doctor says is harmful, and that happens all the time. I'm sure, Barbara, you know, when you're in the hospital, when the doctor says, when the patient says, I need this medicine, the doctor knows that it would be dangerous for the patient to continue taking these medicines, what have you. This doesn't just apply to Shabbos. This applies in general, that if the doctor says that it's harmful to continue taking this treatment, and you want to take it, whether it's an addiction or what have you, so painkillers, etc., so then of course we have to listen to the doctor. But if we had to break down the categories of the halacha, So we have, if there's a regular person says that this person's life is in danger or thinks this person's life is in danger, even if there's a doctor, but and there is no expert doctor contradicting this person, so then we violate the Shabbos. And even if we're in doubt, because we have to be, when it comes to someone's life, we're very careful. And even if there's a contradiction between two doctors, we go with the doctor we'll take a chance, and we're not going to say, well, we're not going to violate the Shabbos because another doctor says otherwise. And even if the patient says, I don't need it, we still listen to an opinion, a doctor that says you need it. In the situation where the patient says, I need healing, even a doctor who says no, we listen to the patient, unless the healing could harm the person's life according to the opinion of the doctor. So that's the breakdown of the laws. In the Rebbe's talk, he says, why is it that we listen to the patient over the doctor? The doctor's the expert. If the doctor says you don't need, why do we say, if the person says I need? Because a person has an intuition that's even deeper of survival according to halacha, even more than the doctor's knowledge. The doctor only knows the textbook studies, or even experience. But the patient has a certain intuition with their own life that if they know their life is dependent on it, their survival is dependent on it, we listen to the patient. That's the halacha. Okay, and in these laws, there's a variety of details of the law of what does it mean. For instance, you could transgress the Shabbos to make a medicine, but if the person says that I must have a cheeseburger, if I don't have a cheeseburger, I'm going to die. It's depending on the situation. We obviously have to check. All right, footnote number 8. Who is himself a Shabbos observer and is familiar with the illness. Okay, so the Mishnah Brewer gives us a little bit definition that when a person says, I know this person, we need to violate the Shabbos for this person. So the Mishnah Brewer says, interesting, that we have to make sure that the person who's giving this opinion, who's not a professional, right? We're not talking about a professional. We're talking about just a regular person says, we need to do this and this for the patient, has to have a sensitivity at least to what it means to keep Shabbos. Because if you're not a Shabbos observer either yourself, so you don't really take Shabbos seriously. So your opinion about what you have to do and how crucial it is has to be taken into account. Again, and is familiar with the illness also. Just a person who says, oh, it looks crazy, it looks dangerous. Yeah, you have to have some knowledge, basically. And we have to also understand if the person is just being overreacting or not. But does this person really understand how important it is to keep Shabbos? So basically, we're not. I'm not going to obviously put any words into the Mishnah Brura, who says the person has to be a Shabbos observer. I think what the Mishnah Brura is trying to say is that the person has to be someone who knows what it means to keep Shabbos and knows that we're very careful with keeping Shabbos, to take that seriously, and also be familiar with at least what this illness is to be able to give an opinion. But just a person off the street who's saying something, we have to question. But again, when it comes to life and death, we're not so makbid, we're not so careful because it's someone's life. So what's the worst case scenario? We were careful with making sure we're machmir, like this Rebbe said, we were careful to make sure that the person keeps the which is bekuch nefesh. Okay. Even unless there's no expert doctor that denies it, maybe relied on Shabbos to be violated for him. In this case, since it is not an expert opinion, a non-Jew is preferable. This is truly only where this they will not cause any delay. So the Mishnah Brewer says also, so because this is not an expert talking, it's not a doctor, it's just a regular person who has some sort of knowledge of the illness and definitely understands what Shabbos is. And the person says that life is in danger. If you could get a Gentile to do whatever has to be done, that would be violating the Shabbos, and it's in a way that will not delay the process. So better have a Gentile do it, because we learned before that if it's pekuach nefesh mitzvah, it's a mitzvah for a Jewish person to do it. But in this case, where we're not 100% sure, because you're not really an expert, so better then that part of the mitzvah that should violate the Shabbos, then better find a non-Jew to do it, so you don't have to. At the end of the day, we're not sure 100% if the person's evaluation is correct. He says like this. What are we talking about? Footnote number 10. If one doctor's opinion that this critical and requires certain care, and the other doctor maintains that he does not require it, or the patient says he does not require it, we accept the opinion of the doctor who says that he requires it. However, where one doctor is greater authority, he is the relied opinion. Doesn't say the source of this, but he says basically, if you have two doctors, and one is an expert, and the expert saying no, you don't need, everything's okay. And the less of an expert says this is crucial, then we go with the expert opinion. Again, these things, not every person who has the title of an expert opinion is always right, and not every person who's not yet an expert is wrong. So again, if we're talking about life and death questions over here, we have to be, better be machmer on pikuach nefesh, on saving someone's life, than being makel and being lenient on Shabbos. So so over here we're talking about a person's life, and if there's an expert opinion, unless we're talking about really on another level of an expert and a really low level of a qualified professional. Okay, number 11. And that again, that he doesn't say that. That's my opinion. 12. Okay, he just brings the sources for this. The bottom line over here is that if we have then we have someone's life in danger. Number one is if the patient feels that their life is in danger and you need to do something to whatever it is, then we don't have any questions. We violate Shabbos unless there's an opinion that what the patient wants is harmful to them. So then the doctor is right. If the doctor is just saying you're not in danger and the patient's saying I'm in danger, we go with the patient. If we have a person who's not even a professional but is familiar with the illness and is sensitive to Shabbos, says this person's life is in danger, we have to violate the Shabbos. Again, we listen to that, and he used the word mumcha, that it seems like just a regular doctor even can't counter that, and I'm just putting words in, but then why would he add the word mumcha, expert? If we have two doctors, we go with the lenient opinion. Unless there's such certainty, basically, of the expertise of the doctor that says, no, this is not a severe situation, and there's an overreaction, that is really certain, it's not even any doubt, then we could go with the expert doctor. But if there's any doubt, whether it's coming from the patient, whether it's coming from one individual, it's coming from a doctor, we always go with to be lenient when it comes to the protection of someone's life. Again, we had a story of a friend whose people make mistakes, whose mother had a condition of severe diabetes that she couldn't even lie down at night. She was sleep sitting. And they wanted to do an MRI for her here in Eretz Yisrael. The story happened in Shaarei Tzedek. He begged. The children said she can't go in the MRI. She won't be able to breathe. And they said, no, it'll be okay. A few minutes, and she passed around the MRI machine. So this, when the patient says, and the patient said, I can't lie down, and they said, no, you can lie down, and they didn't listen to the patient, and she died. Here's a clear indication we see that although there's professionals and doctors, if the patient says I can't do something, or I need something, we listen to the patient. Okay. In Reifer Baki, if you have a skilled doctor, even a Gentile, or someone knowledgeable, says she'afa pi she'ata dain ein Choleh B'Sakana mikol makim im lo yasu lo refuah zois efshe shetichpad alav ha'choli. What happens if you have foresight, kind of preventive medicine, where some sort of expert or knowledgeable person, he says, or even in this case, he says, when he says Gentile, what he means to point out is even a Gentile who may not be familiar with the laws of Shabbos, but if the doctor says that for a preventive situation, you need a process, a healing, an operation, whatever it is that's possibly violating the Shabbos. Although right now you're not in danger, but you will be in danger if you don't do the process, whether it's an operation like that or giving a medicine. It's going to turn into a life-threatening situation. Again, even if the patient says no, it's okay, but the patient doesn't know the medical procedures and situation. So again, when the patient says I'm okay, and the professional says you're not okay, we listen to the professional. When the professional says you're okay, and the patient says I'm not okay, we listen to the patient. Unless again the patient is asking for something that the doctor says will be harmful to them. Shabbos, we listen to the doctor and to the knowledgeable person, and we'll transgress the Shabbos to do the preventative procedure or preventative medicine that needs to be taken, even if it violates the Shabbos. What happens if the doctor says, listen to me, if you don't do this procedure, whatever it is that's going to violate the Shabbos, you're for sure going to die. If you do it, you'll possibly live. I can't guarantee you'll live. We just at least have a possibility. Again, this is all happens daily, all the time, where there's every operation, any kind of situation. Again, Mechal and Shabbos, we transgress the Shabbos. I know to look more about this in the laws of 133 from chapter 133 from law 13 through 18. Okay, what's footnote number 13? So what is considered a skilled physician? A licensed physician are generally considered skilled. Again, but then he adds to this also a person knowledgeable. So again, we're not. A person doesn't have to come and flash their credentials as a skilled physician when they give an opinion. But if you have people that are knowledgeable of it, and they're saying that we need to do something in a preventative situation, I think included in knowledgeable would be nurses, but anyone who's a professional or has some knowledge and says we need to do a procedure for preventive, although right now the person's life is not in danger, then we could do the transgression, whatever it is, even if it's only a doubt if it's going to work. Okay. Now we're going further. Kol makesh b'fnim haguf, any internal an internal wound or injury. Dainu minasafa ulufnim, anywhere from the lips inward on the person. Begamishinayim b'chlal, this includes the teeth. Dainu kilkul shemach masmaka oibua v'kiyetz b'zeh. Something that comes from a blow or a blister. Machal mavz Shabbos ve'eni tzarech oimid. So we may violate the Shabbos for medical evaluation, for medical treatment without major medical evaluation. Even if there's no experts, and the patient doesn't say anything. Whatever we need to do, we do, if it's something internal. So again, taking medicine for sore throat, strep, that's all internal. So we do, that's something that's not a problem. But if you know what the person has, and what the person has is nothing crucial, and you know it, so then you don't have to violate the Shabbos. I mean, if you don't know what it is, and it's inside, just no questions. But if it's something that we know what it is, and we know that's not such a big deal, so then you don't have to transgress Shabbos, because just because it's internal doesn't mean it's dangerous. Because he said in general, pain is not considered a wound. So just because the person's in pain, we're not talking about pain that what causes the pain is dangerous, or if you don't address the pain, it can become dangerous. But just pain itself is not a definition of enough of a reason to violate the Shabbos. What happens if a person has a tremendous toothache? Your whole body is out of commission because of this toothache, and you need to basically pull the tooth. You can ask a Gentile dentist or what have you to pull the tooth. So even though we just said before that pain is not a criteria, but if it mamish affects your whole body, then you could pull the tooth. Okay, let's see footnote number 14. So he says like this. Any blow or blister from the lips inside, you may be violated the Shabbos. The Shabbos may be violated by calling a doctor for someone who is experiencing a great deal of pain internally, whose cause is unknown. So the Bir Halacha says again, if someone has inner pain, right, crazy chronic pain inside, and it doesn't have to be chronic, whatever, really bad pain inside, we don't know what it is, call a doctor. Don't again say, well, I'm not sure what it is considered pain, it's not considered pain. Again, this is not the place to become super cautious. Number 15 is Even if one is knowledgeable, is present, and the patient says nothing, you may do for him whatever is usually done during the week. Okay. See note number 1. According to some poskim, even treatments whose denial poses no danger, are also permitted. So according to some poskim, even treatments whose denial poses no danger is also permitted. Others permit this only by a non-Jew. Mishnah Berurah rules according to the stricter view, where the Malachat Asura, the Arais is violated. Okay, so we're talking about again internal medicine, medicine for internal pain or internal something condition. So he's saying if it's not causing great danger, then we should be more careful. At least the Mishnah Berurah says if it's a da'araisa, if it's whatever you have to do is biblical, you should try to use it with the Gentile. It's not really describing so much, not giving us much information how to apply this. Okay, so 16. Just sees he gives the source. I'm trying to see this again. So, the definition of this law is any internal injury or wound that begins at the lips inward. So again, if okay, only a non-Jew could do it if it's inwards and it's not, and it's denial poses no danger. Okay, so I'm not sure 100% what that would mean. What would the illness mean? Let's continue. Maka shal gav hayad v'shal gav haregel, a wound on the back of the hand and on the back of the foot. V'chein kol maka shenasa machmas barzel, or anything caused by metal, v'al shchin shebepi tabas, or anal blisters. V'chein misha bal aluka, one who swallowed a leech, or shenashchei kelev shota, or is bitten by a dog with rabies. Echad mizochle afar, or snakes or any other insects. I feel the suffix imam lav. You're not sure if the bite is lethal or not. V'chein mishesh by kadachas chazik b'yoser, or very high fever. Machal lav is a Shabbos. Then again you can transgress the Shabbos. Al kadachas hamitzuri, but a regular fever. Ein machal ela oisin adei Yehudi. You yourself should not violate the Shabbos, but a Gentile can if whatever it is that you need to bring down the fever, but it's not in a severe situation. Today, if you have the Tylenol already, then it's not talking, so the Tylenol is already there. The question is, like those days, if you had to make the medicine, so better to have a Gentile make the medicine. But today, if you have Tylenol or Advil and you have fever, so obviously that's considered like it's already been made by the Gentile. All right, 17. If the wound is deep, made by metal, so again, metal could be infectious, so it goes into preventive medicine as well. Anal blisters, he says, not including common hemorrhoids. All right, you have to be a doctor for more information on that one. Or any rabid kind of animals, doesn't have to just be a dog, snake, or scorpions, or again, any kind of poisonous bite or reaction, or if you don't know if there's reaction, again, if you have a doubt and you're not sure what it is, a spider bite, or we were out in the mountains once, and one of our kids' arm blew up from some bite. You don't ask any questions. You go to the doctor. 21 is an ordinary fever. Of course, the condition of the patients, such as age, cause of illness, must be taken into account. According to the opinion of doctors, according to the Igros Moshe, which is Harav Moshe Feinstein, we violate the Shabbos of patients with 102 temperature. Okay, so Moshe Feinstein actually gave us a definition. What's the fever that we violate the Shabbos, no questions asked, is anything above 102. When the patient has 101 temperature, Shabbos is violated only when the patient requests it. Okay, so here we have from Rav Moshe Feinstein gave us the exact temperature. If it's the child or the person has over 102, no questions asked. If the patient has 101 but not 102, so then is only if the patient requested, but on your own, That's not a dangerous fever. It's very interesting. Rav Moshe Feinstein, it's a broad. Obviously, he discussed this with professionals to know what is considered a dangerous fever versus a non-dangerous fever. He wouldn't give the psak unless he had 100% certainty that these are the numbers and the of when it reaches a danger is 102, and before that it wouldn't be considered dangerous unless the patient feels so. Okay, Misha Akso Dam, if a person who has high blood pressure, so you should, and bleeding was a way of letting you to bring down the blood pressure, then you should do it. Evidently, this would assume to other blood pressure treatments. When the person has been bled, and because that obviously caused you to become cold, you could even make a fire for that person to heat up. I feel even if the person is cold and it's the summer. Tammuz means a summer month. 22 is today current medical practice is followed. Again, like I said, whatever the practice today for high blood pressure is what we do. Obviously, today we don't bleed. If a person has pain in both eyes, we'll see what the footnotes is, or there's pus in one of them. Or his eyes were watering or bleeding. Anything that's dangerous for the eyes, then Shabbos, we transgress the Shabbos for eye protection. Let's see footnote number 23. The halacha is based on Shulchan Aruch 328.9. Kaf HaChaim interprets the Shulchan Aruch statement as referring to pain even in one eye. So what does it mean? Pus, any kind of pain in the eye basically needs to be addressed. 24, bleeding, violating Shabbos period where these conditions appear at the onset of the problem, where the illness is improving and these conditions are residual and normal, a malacha d'oraisa is not permitted. So he quotes the Shulchan Aruch saying that if it happened on Shabbos, so you're not sure what's going on. But if we're talking about it's already a condition that you have and you're on the mend, so then to just violate a Shabbos d'oraisa, a biblical transgression, is not allowed. Okay. That makes sense. Choleh Sheyesh Bo Sakana. You have a critically ill person who requires meat. He says, I need to eat. For whatever reason, the person must eat meat. Yesh kan basar aser. Now you have two choices. You could feed the person ready forbidden meat, whatever that would be, non-kosher meat. It doesn't say what that usr could be. It doesn't make it, if it's non-slaughtered meat or even, let's say, pig, right? So better to, but you don't have kosher meat, but you could get kosher meat if you slaughter a cow. So what's better, to take a pre-prepared meat, something that's ready, but it's just forbidden to eat, or to violate the Shabbos to make it edible? So here you could even slaughter the animal better than to feed the person the non-kosher, the forbidden meat. So you say, again, you think that even though you have over here, by slaughtering the animal, you're mamish doing a d'oraisa, you're doing a biblical transgression of Shabbos. But you have food that's non-kosher, but it's ready. Violate the Shabbos to make kosher food than to give the person non-kosher food. Why? What's the reason? So he answers, we're concerned. So he says it's possibly upon discovering that he was fed forbidden meat, he'll be nauseous by it, and then it won't be effective. If we're not concerned, the person may be disgusted by the fact that we gave him or her non-kosher meat. The child who would not be the Shulchan Aruch tells us who would not be disgusted by knowing that they were being fed non-kosher meat would be a child or a person who's not of mental health. Then you do give the forbidden meats and not slaughter on Shabbos. He doesn't have any footnotes over here, but again, this would include, Mr. Rabbi, many different kind of varieties of the question. If you have, for instance, non-kosher meat that's ready, or kosher meat that has to be cooked, it'd be the same question. The point is that if the person is not going to react well, knowing that you're feeding them non-kosher food, and the only reason you're not giving them kosher food is because you don't want to violate the Shabbos, then to give the person non-kosher food. which is a large law in a few things. It's a very large law because basically what we're saying is here, Rebecca, what we're saying is that we take into account the person's how the person perceives the avera, the transgression, or the fact that they'd be eating non-kosher food, even though you're not violating the Shabbos by preparing it, and you would have to violate the Shabbos to prepare kosher food. We take into account the person's reaction. So again, this is a very big law because if you have again a situation, let's say you're in the hospital and the person needs to eat, and you could give the person, and medically the person must eat, and you give the person the non-kosher food or you can prepare kosher food. So if the person's going to have a bad reaction in their emotional situation, knowing that they ate non-kosher food, so better violate the Shabbos to prepare the kosher food. Again, we're talking about the person who has to eat medically. Okay, I'm vashel b'Shabbos b'shvil chayla. If you're cooking for Shabbos for the sick, also the vari l'achla b'Shabbos. The person can't say, "Well, I'm cooking a steak and he's only eating half the steak, or she's only eating half the steak. I'll finish the rest of the steak. I cooked it anyway. It's already cooked." Doesn't work like that. The food that the violation of Shabbos for the person who's sick only is for the person who's sick. Another person can't eat it. If the matzah Shabbos becomes Saturday night, mutar miyad, you could eat it right away. Meaning to say you don't have to wait b'chtei shiasa. You don't have to wait how long it would take to make this food ready, all inclusive. You could eat it right away because you didn't. The law basically there's a law in Shabbos like this that if you violate the Shabbos in certain situations, then and so on Shabbos it's forbidden. What about after Shabbos? Let's say you cooked on Shabbos. So then, if after Shabbos it's forbidden, you cooked on Shabbos unintentionally. So but now it's after Shabbos already. So you say no, you have to wait. We don't want you to benefit from the fact that you violated Shabbos. So if it would take you an hour to prepare the food, you have to wait an hour. So, but over this case, you didn't violate the Shabbos because even though you did it willingly, but you did it for someone who's sick. You were allowed to violate the Shabbos. So therefore, there's no reason to wait the time would take you to prepare the food because it's not about punishing the person or not the person ensuring day. They had to prepare the food because the person was sick. So if a Jewish person cooked it, obviously if it wasn't cooked in a permissible way, that's something else. And we'll learn and check the laws 38, chapter 38, 9. Okay. 25, he says like this. It's forbidden for a well person to eat the leftovers, so to say, on Shabbos. However, the Mishnah Berurah, however, see chapter 38:9. However, the Mishnah Berurah permits food cooked by a non-Jew for a critically ill person to be eaten even by a totally healthy person. So here, the Mishnah Berurah says, what about if there's a Gentile who cooked for you in a permissible way, obviously, cooked for you for someone that's sick, and there's leftovers. So could you have saying I can't eat it because I'm not sick? So you say no, because there was no violation of Shabbos. The violation of Shabbos was the shvus of telling a non-Jew to cook, but that doesn't apply here because it was for a sick person. And again, we're talking about a way that's permissible for you to eat what the person cooked. Okay. So we finished until now. We finished the laws. I think, yeah, the last law here. We finished the laws of people that are sick, critically sick, any kind of danger, and the number one rule is that when in doubt, don't get too frum, and if someone's life is in danger or if someone's health can become endangered, we're talking about a life and death situation, we are very machmir in the laws of pikuach nefesh to make sure a person's life is saved. In those laws and in the crisis, we do take into account obviously the opinions of the professionals. When the professionals mamish saying this is overreaction, we have Rav Moshe Feinstein's amazing psak, I think, that he said that when a fever that can be addressed, can be violated Shabbos is only from 102 and above. 101 only a Gentile, but you can't violate the Shabbos for 101. Again, in Rabbi Feinstein's obviously in the research that he did, he found out that that's the medical procedure. How critical is a person over 102 versus over 101 in their fever? Okay. Any questions before we go to the next law, which is already in a different subject? Okay. All right. So I
Wait,
guess it's
sorry, Rabbi. Actually, I have a question, but I mean, you could tell me if it's not relevant. It's about let's say a Jew doesn't fully keep the mitzvot and they already like broke Shabbos to do something for themselves, like then can you benefit from it? I can't think of a good example right now.
There's a lot of examples for that, but I'm saying
Um,
it's not.
like,
Let's say you go to someone's home who cooked food and they were Jewish. So you say, well, he cooked. They cooked it already. Why can't I eat it? No, you cannot benefit from someone who violated Shabbos, even the person doesn't know the laws of Shabbos.
but like, let's say they raised the air conditioning or something for themselves. Like, do you have to leave the room because of that?
I hear what you're saying. That's a difficult question. Um, Listen, if you come into a house that a Jewish person lives in, or if a Jewish person has control of the thermostat, and that person set the thermostat to be in a comfortable situation, and you knew the person set it on Shabbos, you're 100% certain. So do you have to leave the room because you're benefiting? Or even you're saying more severe where the person is sitting in the house and he's, oh, it's too hot, let's put up the air conditioning. It's a good question. I have to check. It's a very good question because it's a good question. It's a good question. There's a famous story of Reb Nachum. I think Reb Nachum Chernobyl. We learned this. We learned about him in our last class. I think story last class, where he walked into a house and he was tapping like he was blind, or like he was walking into a pitch room, and like as if there was pitch dark and it was lit up. Everyone's wondering why is he walking like tapping as if he couldn't see anything. So they found out that the light was turned on by a Gentile. By a Gentile, this is not even a Jew who wasn't observing the Shabbos, and because he didn't, that was forbidden to take benefit from a Gentile turning on the light. He was such a tzaddik that he didn't see it. It wasn't like he pretended like he didn't see it. Literally, there was no light as far as he was concerned because the light didn't light up the room for him because it was done in a way of violation of Shabbos. So here's a case where the Gentile turned it on, and I don't remember if the story was that the Gentile turned it on in an inappropriate way. I seemingly it was in a Jewish house. It wasn't like in a Gentile house, but in a Jewish house, maybe he was asked whatever it was. But when the Shabbos was violated, he didn't see the light. So that should give you a kind of an indication. But I don't know. That's the story of a tzaddik. I don't know if that's the halacha that if you're in a house or in a place and you know that a Jewish person turned up the air conditioning, if you have to walk out, even if they turned it on for themselves.
Or
I
like, can
have to
I? So I thought of something. So let's say someone doesn't turn off the light in their fridge for Shabbos, and you go and visit them, and then they offer you a drink, and you say, "Oh no, thank you," but then they give it to you anyway. Or let's say they took out a drink for themselves, and they
yeah.
pour you some also. Then what?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm leaning towards. Again, I want to check it because I don't want to just say things that from my. But it seems to me then, like a case where you just described now in the refrigerator situation, is you should not drink it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, but the air conditioning is not so similar because there the person opened the fridge, even if they took out a bottle of soda pop for both of you, but that the turning on the air conditioning is they totally turned it on for themselves. You happen to be in the room. If you walk into the house and because of you they get up to turn up the air conditioning, you can say no, 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 please don't do that. If they already did it, you have to leave is another question, but it could be you do. It could be it's a good question. It could be you do have to check. All right. Okay, here's a situation. If one is being forced to transgress even a serious sin for the moment, we'll see what that means in footnote number 26. Even if it's very severe, we do not violate the Shabbos in order to save him from committing the transgression. Means if the person is being forced, honest means forced, whatever that means, forced by gunpoint, whatever, to do an avera. So we're not going to violate the Shabbos to save it. So if they're just going to do a very severe transgression, and you could save them by violating the Shabbos, let them do the transgression. You don't have to violate the Shabbos to save another person from doing a transgression. if they're being forced. But if the person is going to do something, if what they're forcing them is to convert, there's the children being taken to the church to be converted. Right? It happened all the time in Russia. Could you run to the church to grab the kids out? Of course. That's something else. They want to convert them out. They should no longer be what's considered part of the Jewish fold. Although you can never really take a Jew away from his or her Judaism, but in what the person perceives. Even if we're talking about children, they're not adults. Whoever can help has to help. Even if you have to violate transgression. And this doesn't just include, literally, like I said, the extreme situation where a whole bunch of kids are put before a ceremony that's going to make them convert out of their religion. Even like, for instance, to go save the Jewish people from a decree that's along these lines is also allowed to violate the Shabbos. The famous story: the Frierdiker Rebbe went to go meet a minister on Shabbos, etc. It is no different than the obligation you have, not just the permission, the obligation you have to save a person who's critically ill, sick. So too, you have an obligation to save people from doing something that would convert them out of Yiddishkeit. The verse says the Jewish people kept the Shabbos. The Torah says, you're allowed to transgress one Shabbos in order to keep many Shabbosim. Right? So the same thing applies when a person's sick. If you don't heal the person, then the person's going to pass away. They won't keep next week's Shabbos. They're not going to be alive. So too, spiritually, if the person's going to be converted out and they're no longer going to be part of the Jewish people, so they're not going to keep next week's Shabbos. So of course you have to violate the Shabbos. It's a mitzvah. Violate, transgress one Shabbos in order so you should keep many Shabbos. Keep the person in the fold. What the person says, 1 second, I'm not even sure my efforts are going to work. They may just kick me out. That doesn't make a difference. You go save the children. You have to. Not just you can, you have to. To do whatever you can. Just like you would violate the Shabbos for someone's questionable life and death situation, so too, even if you have any opportunity that you think possibly, maybe you could save these people, you would transgress the Shabbos. What's the difference? That's a case where a person is being forced. But what happens if the person is not being forced? The person willingly is going to the church to convert to Chas v'Shalom. So, again, I just want to give a definition to this law in a second. Then it's not your job to violate the Shabbos in order to save the person, because the person is doing it by choice. But if we're talking about rabbinical violations, if we're talking about just walking past the distance of Shabbos or even riding a horse to save that person, because you could convince them, they're not being forced, but you could convince them. Or even to take a wagon, a car. I don't know about a car, but a wagon. To carry money, maybe the person needs money to be paid off. To save this person, you could save the person even though the person is doing it willingly. Today, for instance, a person who's a tinish nishma, a person who doesn't know better, and it's not like the person is a knowledgeable person of Torah mitzvahs. Today, what we call today a person who's a pesheya is not really what a pesheya is. Meaning to say, when the Torah says, well, the person knows what they're doing, no one's for putting a gun to their head. Well, they're not putting a gun to their head, but they're like a child who was raised in a non-Jewish environment. They have no idea what it really means to convert. They don't understand the significance because, unfortunately, of their background. So that's not considered a pesheya, a person who's willingly. That's an oinus, because it's not maybe a gun to the head, but circumstances. It's out of they don't know what they're doing. They're almost like a child spiritually, or they are a child spiritually. All right, let's see the footnotes. Even adultery, even to serve idols, where there is a possibility that he may be willing to die rather than adultery rather than transgress it it is obligatory to violate the Shabbos to save them. So even in the case where the person may die and therefore won't violate it, nevertheless, you should go save that person. So says the Mishnah Berurah. 27. Concerning a minor that the author accepts the ruling of the Eliyah Rabbah, as does the Mishnah Berurah, Chaya Adam, however, allows violating only the Rabbanan prohibitions. So when it comes to children being converted out, according to the Chaya Adam, it's only rabbinic things that you're allowed to do because they're children, they're not adults. Again, that's not. I'm not gonna. We have plenty of authorities where we could be. You have to remember, after the war, after the Holocaust, there was all those children that were taken to the churches, and they weren't given back. Dr. and Rabbi Silver went to take the children out of the churches that were the parents deposited the children in the churches to be saved from the Nazis. It was a crisis. They had to get the kids out. So I'm quite sure that they violated the Shabbos if they had to get the children out. All right, 28 is a reference. 29. The Eli Rav and Pri Megadim Mishnah Berurah say that that for rabbinic reasons, even if the person's willingly doing it, you could violate the Shabbos. Again, a person who's wants to convert and is doing it willingly, we're talking about a person who knows the significance of what it means to be Jewish and knows what it means to convert out of Judaism. Or a person who doesn't really understand what it means to be Jewish because that person was never properly educated. Like the Rambam says, or even children of the people that decided willingly to leave Yiddishkeit, their children are not to blame what the parents did. So that's not really a pesheya. That's closer to an oinus. Let's see what the next chapter is. Maybe we think we're going to stop here, maybe open for some questions. Yes, let's wait till next week on this one, which is the laws of women at childbirth, which is its own. Obviously, this is not something to be taken lightly. Any questions on what we've learned so far this week? All right. And thank you all for joining. Shagat Shabbos, Laila Tov, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.